Edgar Adrian Martinez used to play in this band in his hometown of Coatepec, Mexico, but now the band members are playing for him. They came to his funeral after Edgar died in the Arizona desert last month. He was 23 years old. Eugenio Martinez is his father.
The
truth is, my son had dreams of a better life. He was a responsible person, educated and with firm principles. He was a hard worker, sincere, and honest.
Eugenio Martinez says his son had a very simple plan if he made it into the United States. He was going to save money and send it back home to help out the family. Edgar also wanted his father, a mason, to buy a piece of property and build a home for Edgar and his future wife. Eugenio says his son had been anxious in recent years. He wanted a better life than he could find in Coatepec, so last year he began planning his trip to the United States. It took him until last month to save and borrow more than $1,700 to pay the smugglers. He quit his job at the local Coca-Cola company, where his family says he was making about $50 a week for a 6-day work week. Then he began his northbound journey to the U.S., but the trip ended in Arizona about 2 weeks later. Edgar's body was one in a group of 14 who was found in a desert near Yuma. Edgar's father says he worried about his son's journey, but didn't try to stop him.
No nada más era mi hijo, sino era mi amigo.
He was more than my son, he was also my friend. But he was no longer a child, and I didn't feel it was my place to tell him what to do. He had made up his mind, so I tried to be supportive.
Besides, the father says, there's a saying in Mexico:
El que no arriesga no pasa el río.
If you don't take a risk, you can't cross the river. And while that may be true, the river in Arizona was too huge to handle. A sea of sand with lots of heat and little shade. And not a drop of water this time of year, unlike the abundant streams that you'll find in Coatepec. With photojournalist Rogelio Garcia, I'm Tony Paniagua, Eyewitness News 4 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico. Times are slower in the town of Tonayán. Tonayán is a place where many of the people depend on agriculture to make ends meet. And while residents here may not be familiar with the latest fashions or even the internet, they do have a knack for working with their hands. Just ask Rosendo Olivares. Olivares can grow corn and many other crops, and he's even taken his skills all the way to Canada.
Hace un año nos enteramos nosotros por medio de la expresidenta municipal.
1 year ago, we found out about the program from the former mayor here. It's simple. Some of us can go to Canada and work legally.
No es un trabajo de ciudad, no es un trabajo de oficinas.
It isn't city jobs. It isn't jobs in the offices. We go there to work in the countryside. They've treated us very well up there. They appreciate us, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Olivares and the other men take a bus to Mexico City, where they fly to Toronto and work in several Canadian provinces. Their work is legal, so there's no hiding, no law breaking, no dangerous treks in the deserts with smugglers. When the farmers from Tonayán work up north, they make about $7 Canadian an hour, or about $4.61 US. That's close to their salary for a full day's work in Tonayán.
Es un trabajo temporal, pero
it's a temporary job, but it's very good.
Olivares says no one's getting rich from the money they're making in Canada, but it is making a huge difference for some of the extras. For example, in this neighborhood, residents have pitched in and bought their own materials so they can fix this street, something their government hasn't done. Tonayán's mayor says residents are very happy with the program, and they would like to do something similar with the U.S.
There are people who die on their way to the U.S., and I think everyone can agree it's not a good thing. That's why it would be nice to work out some type of agreement where people can go and work legally. Of course, there's a flip side for us here. So many residents are leaving that now we are facing shortages in workers.
Olivares cites the economic disparity as the main factor. And even though he's applied to work in Canada again, he says his home is here, in Tonayán. With photojournalist Rogelio Garcia, Tony Paniagua, Eyewitness News 4 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico. If you ever visit this hilltop town called Coyolillo, you might notice something after a while. It's not in the architecture or the landscaping, but in the people. You'll see a lot of kids and their mothers. But many of the younger men are missing. They're not here because they've headed north for jobs in the United States. Florinda's husband is an example.
My husband has been gone for 1 year and 8 months. He works in construction in the southwestern United States.
With the dollars from the U.S., Florinda's husband is helping his family. A brand new 2-bedroom house, electrical appliances, and furniture for every room.
You don't make the same amount of money. Over there, they make more. There's no way we would have been able to afford all of this had my husband stayed here.
Florinda's story is just one of many like it in Coyolillo, where practically everyone has a friend or family member who has lived or is living in the United States. We spoke to a man who recently returned here after living in Chicago and Indianapolis. His name is Simon, and he has a story of financial success in the U.S. A new truck for the family, an addition to his house and property in the surrounding countryside. But it doesn't come by sitting and taking it easy, he says. In the States, he shared a room with 6 other men.
If you don't do it that way, you can't save money. I heard of places where even 12 people would share a living area. You suffer and it's difficult, but that's the way to do it. You have to be serious about working hard and saving as much as you can.
Still, the material possessions in Coyolillo can come at a price you can't count in dollars. Missing family members who are hundreds of miles away. Florinda's little girl who doesn't know her father.
I have my house and I have a lot of furniture.
Florinda tells us later she's very grateful, but the sacrifice of a separated family is getting harder every day. Her husband plans to return to Coyolillo in September, but if he's anything like Simon, he'll be heading back to the U.S. With photojournalist Rogelio Garcia, Tony Paniagua, Eyewitness News 4 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico. The state of Veracruz, Mexico is like a tropical paradise that happens to be home to a terrible problem. It's called poverty, and it's killing people. 23-year-old Edgar Adrian Martinez is one of the victims. His journey to the U.S. and what he thought would be a better life began in the small town of Coatepec last month. But it ended on Saturday at his funeral back in Coatepec.
Estoy triste. Mi corazón desgarrado.
I am sad. My heart is broken. I may seem composed, but I'm in agony along with the rest of the family and Edgar's friends. This is a tragedy I don't wish on anyone. The pain is indescribable.
Hundreds of people turned out to say goodbye to Edgar and his godfather, who also died. Standing room only inside the church with the overflow crowd on their feet outside, many of them with flowers.
They came from all parts of the state. Many residents didn't know them, but they came to demonstrate their pain, to pay their condolences.
Many Americans think of illegal immigrants as people who cause problems, but in Mexico you're likely to find a very different perception. Those who make the journey north are often referred to as heroes, pioneers who risk it all for a better life.
I think these men, in a very explicit and exemplary manner, represent the ideals of many people from this area. They were young, they had families, they were hard workers, and they had a strong desire to succeed and help out their relatives. In their case, they took it to the extreme. They took a chance and they lost their lives.
But the priest in this service calls it a transformation in their lives, not an ending. They didn't make it to their American dream, he says, but they're going elsewhere. A place without poverty to make you risk your life. With photojournalist Rogelio Garcia, Tony Paniagua, Eyewitness News 4 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico. You see them in many of the plazas south of the border. Some residents sell trinkets to make a living. Others will shine your shoes. Or perhaps they depend on ice cream like Antonio Vasquez does. He offers refreshing flavors to cool you down.
Limón, coco.
Vendors like Vasquez say it's an honest way to earn some cash, but there's nothing easy about it.
No, pues le digo, me levanto a las 4 de la mañana, 4:30, que estamos aquí en Coatepec.
I get up at 4 in the morning and I arrive at Coatepec at about 4:30 since I don't live in town. I sell in this plaza, go to schools, and move around different neighborhoods. It seems like I cover half the city before I go home 12 to 14 hours later.
With the ice cream he sells, Antonio Vasquez says he can make up to 100 pesos on a very good day, although most times he makes a lot less. And as you're about to see, 100 pesos is not a lot of money. 100 Mexican pesos at an exchange rate of 9 pesos to the dollar is $11.11. Here's how Vasquez spends it.
Si vas a comer, le cobran 15 pesos de la comida.
If he eats 2 meals a day, it's 30 pesos for both.
¿Cuánto te quedan? 70 pesos.
That leaves him 70 pesos, and he contributes 50 of that amount for the family's meals.
Le digo, sobran 20 pesos de los que gano.
I get 20 pesos left over from what I make, which means there's really not much I can do since I have to think about the next day.
Above the plaza where Vasquez works, Coatepec's mayor sees many other people like him, each doing his best to make ends meet.
Son trabajadores y tienen un deseo de superación muy fuerte.
They are hardworking and have a strong desire to succeed. Unfortunately, some people can't make it here, so they think of a better life elsewhere, usually in the U.S.
Sí sabe que es muy peligroso, ¿no? Pero por la vida de la familia, ¿no? Lo que precisa.
People know it's dangerous to cross the border, but your family's life is what's important. You work hard because you don't want to end up begging on the streets.
So what about the American dream for Antonio? He says his siblings and parents all live in Mexico and cooperate, and he's not interested in risking his life. But he adds, there are many other people in plazas around this country who may just take that chance. With photojournalist Rogelio Garcia, Tony Paniagua, Eyewitness News 4 in the state of Veracruz, Mexico.